For this session, we'll have a series of short speeches from 4 different presenters who are all coming to us remotely from Australia. So this is the Land Down Under session. So the Aussies in the room and out there watching, this is for you. We're going to bring 2 of them on screen right now, and then we'll hear from the 2 others later. But sitting together are the founder of Weather SV and Metastreme, 2 well-known applications and tools in the BSV space, Paul Chiari, and next to him, his frequent partner in business, the co-founder and managing director of Predict Ecology, Daniel Keane. So, Paul, I will leave it to you to begin our first presentation. I'll be talking with you after you're done.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy. It's great to be back for another CoinGeek conference, and great shame that we cannot be there in person today, but we're broadcasting from the tropical paradise of Cairns, Australia, thanks to CoinGeek. Unfortunately, a couple of the other speakers are unable to be here with us today due to the COVID restrictions, but will instead tune in from the lockdown state of Victoria. As a technology business, we have had an interest in the possibilities of public blockchain for some years. The unshackling of Bitcoin in 2018 was a significant step that gave us the confidence to trial ideas on how a public immutable ledger can enhance the value and veracity of data. This led to the development of Weather SV, which soon had thousands of active weather feeds, logging what has now surpassed 90 million climate updates to the Bitcoin SV network. Weather SV is now moving into its next phase as we begin to integrate private weather stations, allowing users to own and monetize the data contributed to the platform. The experience of building Weather SV demonstrated the limitations of current tools and libraries, which led to the development of Metastreme. It is essentially an API-driven Bitcoin transaction building engine capable of extremely high volume throughput. It can make it simpler for any application integrating with Bitcoin SV by removing complexity from the application itself. It is designed to accommodate easy integration of data sources and IoT devices, which can enable a range of use cases, such as oracles for smart contracts or provable audit trails. We have built it from the ground up to be a highly efficient, sustainable platform capable of virtually infinite scaling. Although still in beta, we do have a number of applications currently utilising Metastreme on the mainnet and welcome anyone interested in exploring its potential to get in touch with us. Our journey to date with Bitcoin SV comes from a desire to solve problems of waste and inefficiency that plague many industries and supply chains. Sustainability to me starts by doing more with less. It is about reducing the waste and maximising efficiency in each step of a process. Industries such as agriculture directly interface with natural resources like land, energy and water. Waste in agricultural production and supply not only impacts the sustainability of the industry itself, but the very resources it relies on. Bitcoin, combined with other technologies, can go a long way in bringing transparency and efficiencies to industries that in turn incentivise sustainable practices. Coin Carbon Cap highlights why there is only one real choice when it comes to building sustainable solutions on a public global ledger. Only through scale can Bitcoin operate in an energy and cost-effective manner. Building a sustainable future requires a bottom-up approach to many of the challenges we face today. Top-down systems like carbon taxes create misaligned incentives that often don't achieve the best outcomes. Similarly, and disappointingly, Mr. Musk and other BTC apologists are saying that the massive inefficiencies of BTC can be tolerated so long as they are powered by renewables. In my view, that is no path to a sustainable future, but instead one that ends up with human interplanetary refugees. Our blockchain developments are only a small part of a much larger puzzle. Our focus now is on connecting with others that are making a real difference to the sustainability of industry and the planet as a whole. For this presentation, I am joined by some business partners that will be sharing their innovative solutions and how they may benefit from the utility of an unshackled Bitcoin. Firstly, Dan from Ecology will update us on some projects we are working on, including an exciting new development. Then we will hear from Nick, whose company, Fargo, utilises IoT and low-power wireless in providing solutions aimed at driving efficiencies in the agricultural production. Our work together has led to the first live weather stations directly integrating with WeatherSV. This paves the way forward for improving climate data collection, while also laying down the groundwork to integrate many other IoT devices with the Bitcoin SV ledger. Finally, Brett from Smart Systems will discuss the amazing water source units and the IoT technology used to monitor and maintain them. We are very excited to work with them on utilising blockchain technology within their processes while tackling some of the current shortfalls of water quality data reporting. Thank you all. It is fantastic to be a part of the CoinGeek Zurich and urge anyone interested in learning more or contributing to anything that we are doing to please reach out to us.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, we'll go straight to Daniel. Go ahead, Daniel. You can start your presentation, then I'll ask some questions after Daniel's done.
No worries. Thank you all. It's fantastic to be a part of CoinGeek Zurich. Sorry, just getting my clicker. And thank you for the wonderful introductions. So human beings are busy, and as a result, natural resources and their ecosystems can be easily overlooked. They're overlooked because they're around us every day. They're where we live. Overlooked and not noticed until something's not right, until something changes. And this is environmental degradation. Degradation of land, water, air, biology and culture. And most of us can notice this degradation. So we hear this S word used as a tool to assist us in preventing this degradation, a way of being mindful of the interactions that we're having. I like to think of sustainability as an interaction between a human and natural system that does not damage the values of nature, and therefore, by extension, an interaction that can be achieved in a regenerative, dynamic, self-sustaining way. To be sustainable, it's a good idea to start from an efficient base. The carbon footprint for proof-of-work blockchains has been a popular topic in the media recently. So looking at the right, it's obvious that in terms of carbon dioxide, the BTC network is not efficient. BSV, on the other hand, well, I had to use magnification in order to make a scaled image. So that's a good start. But the BSV blockchain can be so much more than that. Let's take a look at carbon markets. A forest is a complex network of trillions of competitive interactions passing information from one another, all coalescing into a complex web that we call an ecosystem. Humans have an overwhelming desire to reduce multidimensionality, from stereotypes through to complex systems theories such as game theory. Our recreations of ecosystems have much reduced complexity. For example, carbon plantations are very much one-dimensional. But is carbon the only ecosystem service we should be expecting from carbon farming? The image on the left is carbon planting, a simple network with minimal competition, minimal complexity, a monoculture with minimum diversity and minimal resilience. Yes, you can record co-benefits, but is that enough? Can these values be realised? Can we do better? On the right, there's a forest. It's got complexity, it's got competition, it's got trillions of interactions, high volumes of information flowing. It's diverse, it's resilient, and yet it's tagged to be cleared or thinned for cattle grazing, cleared for simplification. Could we not use Hurwitz's criteria here to balance the competing interests of money, development, and the environment? We're on the brink of a precipice. Biodiversity collapse will change the ecosystem services that we expect and take for granted, and they'll be changed for the worse. I see BSV being like a forest. Trillions of competitive interactions in a complex, diverse, resilient web coalescing into what I like to think of as a worldwide digital biome. We can start from a good base, that's BSV, and we can choose between the forest or the carbon plantation. And we can value ecosystems for their complexity rather than just their carbon. So how do we achieve this? Well, we start by recording the complexity of natural systems that we value. Here's a tool we're developing, a blockchain-enabled spatial field data collection tool. All that's needed is a smartphone with a GPS. It doesn't even need a live internet connection. All the data can be synchronized later. What did you call it yesterday, Jimmy? SDV? This tool will allow us to trace, use, and validate data all the way from field collection through modelling and decision-making, right through to permits, compliance, and eventually closure. Here's another such example of a tool we're developing. This is tree data stored on the BSV blockchain that's being used to calculate species diversity at varying H3 resolutions. The data shown here is the number of species within a unit area. However, that data could be so much more. It could be water rights, it could be mineral resources and licensed extractions. It could be tons of wheat in a field, and they can be stacked and layered and interrelated and referenced. Here's another such tool we're working on, using machine learning and a form of convolutional neural network to classify and delineate vegetation types. With the rapid advances being made by the developer of S-Script, we'll soon be able to load these weights onto chain and take advantage of the competition and Turing completeness of the BSV ledger to map spatial vegetation patterns. And finally, I'd like to make Predict Ecology and Metastreme are excited to announce a new development. Predict Ecology's client, Progressive Minerals, are planning to become the first mineral exploration and mining company to integrate blockchain technologies at all levels of business. This will enable Progressive Minerals to demonstrate the value of the BSV blockchain, values of true data integrity and transparency. All data streams will be integrated into the BSV blockchain to ensure their respective properties remain untampered and inherently factual. Using Metastreme and Predict Ecology, Progressive Metals aim to deliver a level of transparency, integrity, and governance for a company that until now, investors, regulators, and governments would have deemed not practical at best or not possible at worst. So, thank you very much, everyone. And if you'd like to get in contact with us for any of these projects or technologies, please feel free.
Great job. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, I thought you did a great job with Paul. I have a few questions for you. Let's talk about this deal that you just announced through a press release yesterday and just described here. Tell us who some of the users or possible ways to use this data for the mineral company would be.
Well, first thing, the managing director of the company was very interested in being able to offer shareholders a level of transparency that hasn't been available or achieved. So as a shareholder of this company, you would be able to log in and see what the production results are in near real time, see what the environmental monitoring is saying, see whether or not they're in compliance, what their social license to operate is, all in real time.
Which is a great use of blockchain technology. What's the next steps in implementation of your relationship with the company?
We're currently going through negotiating contracts.
Okay, got it. Let's go back to Paul. We have a question for Paul from the audience, which is, will TAL, Canadian public company in mining and transaction processing, we've heard from yesterday and we'll hear from today, will TAL be working with WeatherSV and Metastreme to work on energy efficiency for their mining?
Oh, look, we're always happy to talk. You know, we like the ideas of TAL and where they're going and where they're headed and the ability of their systems that are proving themselves on the chain. We are in the process of developing our stuff through their MAPI interface and testing some of that on the testnet. Whatnot, so yeah, certainly we do hope to explore those opportunities and yeah, we're more than happy to talk to anybody about how we can help to come together to make the most efficient use of the blockchain possible.
Sure. I will be trying to broker a business opportunity here between Metastreme, Weather SV, and Tall right here in the audience and watching virtually. And that question comes from BSV supporter John Goldberg. Hey, John, how you doing out there in virtual world? All right, with that, and we'll bring you back after the next two presentations. So Paul and Daniel will hang out where they are while we next move to another company from Australia, which is going to be presented by Nick Seymour, who is founder and CEO of Fargo Group. Please take it away, Nick.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm coming from Melbourne, and we are in another lockdown at the moment. So unfortunately, I can't join the fellas up there in Cairns. Yeah, maybe next year. So Fargo, we are a ag tech company in Australia, and 6 months ago, I never even heard of blockchain. What we are doing is solving realistic problems on the farm using IoT technology. So, for instance, one of the major issues on farms is water. It's absolutely critical, and it's also prone to failing. So it's one of the major stress points for every farmer. So what we've done is we've invented a product called the Water Rat, and essentially what it does, it just floats around in a trough. This is where the animals drink from. And as soon as the trough level gets low, it'll tilt over and send an alert to your phone or your PC, wherever you are. And you can go out and you can fix the trough before they lose all the water from the tank. Now, we thought this is a very simple device with a simple function, but actually over a long period of time, what it's doing is gathering data. Another device that we've been installing on a lot of farms is rainfall gauges, IoT connected rainfall gauges. And one of the emerging values of rainfall is that it's driving the value of Australian farms. As a farm is only as valuable as the amount of water that it can receive, as the amount of rainfall as it receives, and as climate change is having real effects on properties here in Australia. We are finding properties that used to get 28 inches of rainfall are getting 22 inches of rainfall, and it's changing the values of farms rapidly. And if you want to value a farm, you've got to have really good and verifiable data of recent rainfall, not the rainfall records collected 100 years ago, and they've got to be verifiable. This is an example of what these units look like out on the farms. They're very simple. Sorry, I'll just skip forward. They're quite simple units. They are quick to install. Most of our products are using what's called a LoRaWAN technology. This is long-range Wi-Fi, very low data, but very long distances. And there's just a few examples of them out in the field, and they are just sitting there collecting data all the time. Now, things changed, or the horizons kind of opened up a few months ago when Paul got in touch with us and says, hey, Nick, that rainfall data, do you want to put it on the blockchain? And we're like, well, what's the blockchain? We've got no idea what the blockchain is. And then Paul explained to us that it's it's an immutable ledger of the rainfall data, and it would actually enable people to share their data and potentially collect micropayments from their rain stations. Now, this is really, really valuable because in Australia, when we're looking, it's a big country, and the government weather agencies, they can't provide the sort of granular data that you need in each location. So what can happen now is you can put your rainfall gauge on your farm, and you can potentially, rather than paying $75 a year to keep it running, you can actually maybe earn $50 a year by sharing that data with other people, and that's made possible through the blockchain and the micropayments and the system that Paul has set up at Metastreme. So we think this is really going to open up the adoption of digital IT. There's another huge part which is coming, and we're just starting to see inquiries and requests about this. The traceability of the food that you eat, from the day it's born to the day it's processed, to the day it goes to the supermarket and it comes on your plate. This is becoming more and more important by the day, by the month, by the year. The industry bodies in Australia are desperate to get a better system of food traceability, and they've already funded 2 blockchain projects to try and achieve this, because they're aware of the potential of the blockchain to provide that lifetime traceability, the immutable and verifiable chain of data that's required. When we go into the supermarket and we look at the products on the shelves, what people are concerned about really is having confidence that the products that they're buying, the animals have been treated ethically, their welfare's been looked after, and the food products that they buy are going to be safe and free of pesticides and all those other kind of things. If you look at the websites of the major food companies in the world, you go to any of their websites and you'll see one thing in common. All of them are aware of their stakeholders' need to be reassured about the welfare of the animals and the sustainability of their systems. All of the big ones. So it's coming to us on the ground here, a responsibility to provide verifiable data of what we're doing. Not to say that we're being sustainable, but to actually prove it. And it's coming from the people that buy our products, who eventually are the major food distributors on the planet. That's a quick introduction. I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of the potential of blockchain in what we're doing. We were never aware of it. Our company is called Fargo. You can see a little bit more about us at fargo.com.au.
Great. Thank you so much, Nick. Give him a round of applause. Nick, we'll bring you back in a moment after Brett speaks and talk to you with some questions. It's fascinating, by the way, absolutely fascinating. And I'm going to ask you, so you can think about how to answer this, what you think of blockchain now that you actually know what it is. But let's go to Brent Anquetil, who is the CTO of Smart Systems. I'm really fascinated to hear this presentation again, Brett, and see if there's any new developments you want to talk to us about, because Nick just talked about the use of blockchain data to really help our farming and agricultural situation be improved, as well as with food safety and supply chain. Brett's going to talk to you about the importance of clean water and how that is so important around the world and how blockchain technology can help. Brett, take it away.
Thanks, Jimmy. Today I'm going to talk about a project that began here in Australia a few years ago and now addresses a problem that impacts millions of people around the world today. One of the greatest human challenges we're facing at this time is one of the most basic societal needs, access to clean drinking water. The World Health Organization estimates that 780 million people, that's 780 million people around the world, do not have access to clean drinking water. Just to make sure you got that, 780 million people around the world don't have access to clean drinking water today. Now, if you think that's bad, 829,000 people die each year as a result of unsafe drinking water and sanitation. That's not 829,000 this year or 829,000 last year. That's 829,000 every year due to unsafe drinking water and sanitation. Now, if that doesn't convince you that there's a problem, then the United Nations are certainly convinced that there's a problem. They've made clean drinking water one of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, it's probably no surprise that most people impacted by this lack of clean drinking water live in low resource areas. And of those, women and children bear the brunt of travelling to get water. Now, this, of course, then impacts on their access to education and employment. Now, don't for a moment think that this problem is limited to developing nations. This picture here is a water supply in rural Victoria, less than 2 hours drive from where I'm sitting in Melbourne today. The residents of this town, well, of course they have to boil the water before they can drink it, but this is the problem here in Australia. And it's not just limited to Australia. What you see on this slide is some water that we are treating at the moment in Scotland. That's Scotland in the United Kingdom. Seriously, the water coming to people's houses is that colour. And, it's not just Australia, it's not just Scotland. You can read any number of articles about problems with drinking water in places like the United States. So why is this so difficult to solve? Why is clean water so difficult? Well, centralised water treatment facilities, they're great. Big cities like Melbourne, small towns, they have them, but they cost millions of dollars to build, and they require massive distribution networks, and it's just not economically feasible for smaller communities. So then, small-scale water treatment. There's problems with small-scale water treatment. Mostly inconsistent quality and reliability. It's extremely difficult to ensure consistent water quality when there are so many contributing factors, such as environmental conditions and industrial contamination. Now, I touch on this environmental conditions. We'll go back to that in a moment and talk about how weather SV can really help us here. And of course, these small-scale systems are put out in the field and they're left. They're not monitored. Nobody knows if they're working properly. The reliability just cannot be guaranteed. So that leaves communities relying on bottled water. And when this is their sole source of clean drinking water, it's extremely expensive, and it contributes to the massive global pollution problem. So, Water Source Australia and Smart Systems have developed a point of entry water processing unit that can provide up to 8 litres of clean drinking water every minute. That's 8 litres every minute, or in other words, 10,000 litres of water every day. Every single day, 10,000 litres of clean drinking water out of this one unit. Just quickly, the unit has 4 stages of water treatment. Firstly, there's a pre-treatment, which removes dirt and other suspended solids. Second, there's ultrafiltration that removes fine particles and organics. Thirdly, there's granular activated carbon for colour removal. And finally, disinfection to inactivate 99.99% of viruses. The unit itself has a number of sensors. We're measuring things like turbidity, temperature, mineral content. So that's giving us a lot of data to work with. The operation of the unit itself is controlled by an onboard computer. It's collecting 20 data points every second, and that's all being sent to the cloud. So let me explain a little bit about how the cloud is so critical to the operation of these units. So, as I said, each unit is continuously monitored and controlled by the onboard computer. And that is programmed to ensure safe water is produced at all times. Should the input water get out of the parameters that are specified, the unit will shut down. Should the unit move to a different location, it will shut down. So it's got quite a lot of smarts built into it. Then the unit is connected up to the cloud. We're currently using 4G cell network. In the future, we'll go to 5G. We'll probably support LPWAN, the stuff Nick was talking about, or even possibly satellite. There's a lot of work going on now with low orbit satellites, particularly here in Australia, where the cell phone network is not doesn't have great coverage in rural areas. So once the data gets to the cloud, that's when the intelligence kicks in. So as the data is ingested, we're looking for alerts, we're looking for anomalies. We can trigger instant notifications to our service centre. We can notify engineers on the ground. They can get to a problem and resolve it very, very quickly. Once we've got the data, we're storing it. We're feeding it into machine learning algorithms. This is allowing us to provide operational or feedback to operational parameters, so the units can consistently or constantly be adjusted so that they're operating in the most efficient way possible. And what we will also be doing is looking at predictive maintenance. Once we've got enough data, we'll be looking at ways that we can predict maintenance intervals, how we can get engineers out to perform maintenance before our units start to fail. And then, of course, the system wouldn't be complete without operational dashboards. They allow us to monitor every unit in real time and provide our customers with the data they need. So, if you're like me, this is all very exciting, but really it is all about outcomes. So what you see here is a before and after. So this is the water that we're treating here in Victoria with the water that we're producing. Yeah, it's an excellent outcome. Now, what may not be so obvious are some of the other outcomes that we're getting from this project. So this is actually a community in Timor-Leste, which is a few hours flight off the coast of Australia, and we've got some units there. The community has actually bonded around these units. We've got local people that have been trained to service the units. We've got people, operating the units in the medical centre. It's really become a community coming together around the water source units. I will also mention solar panels on the top of the shipping container there. All the units can be solar powered for easy use in off-grid areas. Now, the third outcome that we've managed to get is employment. So again, in Timor-Leste, we've actually got people setting up micro businesses that are selling bottled water. So they're reusable bottles, and they get cleaned and refilled and sold to the community. And this has provided employment opportunities for people that otherwise wouldn't get those opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, we're looking for opportunities now where we can integrate with blockchain and look for more outcomes. So we're working with Paul and Dan and Metastreme, and we're looking at how we can provide publicly verifiable records of water quality, also of our output volumes, our maintenance history. And as I said, with services like Metastreme, we're able to integrate with blockchain technology simply and quickly. Now, we're also looking at how we can contribute to the global data sets on water quality. We're collecting a lot of data, as I mentioned, over 20 data points every second. And that gives us a lot of information about groundwater, about surface water. If we can combine this with the work that Paul and Dan are doing with environmental data, we can provide data sets that will ultimately help people understand relationships between the environment and water quality. It's no real secret that things like rainfall affect groundwater quality. And finally, those micro businesses that I mentioned, well, imagine if they could take micropayments using Bitcoin SV. That alone would open up new business opportunities to sell water by the gallon or by the litre. I think to sum up, a final thought on this, with our IO technology, we are changing the lives of many people. When we combine this with Bitcoin SV, we're not going to just change the lives of people, we're going to change the lives of people for generations to come. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you very much, Brett. Let's give them all a round of applause. I think all of these use cases are fascinating and really demonstrate the power of BSV's blockchain to ignite the power of data for sustainability. I have a question for Nick as well as then Brett, which is Nick, actually one of our virtual online audience members, noticed the potential for collaboration between your company and Brett because he asked this question: could Farmo be adapted to work in countries with fresh water shortages, perhaps to monitor or learn patterns in groundwater content and perhaps partner with Smart Systems? So Nick, why don't you take that?
Yeah, look, absolutely that is a possibility. And what tends to happen is we get little bits of data that are solving a particular problem, but over time we're creating data sets, and there's inferences that can come from those data sets that are far more powerful than the original problem. And so I think this is the type of thing that could happen in partnership with Brett.
Got it. I'll go to Daniel. Daniel, do you see your company having opportunities to work with both of Nick and Brett's companies?
Oh, definitely, Jimmy, without doubt.
What kinds of things do you think would create a good interrelationship with the projects you're working on?
Simply being able to have a single source of verifiable environmental data, be it air, water, rainfall, humanity, if we unsilo our data, we'll actually be able to make decisions that we've not been able to make before. Brett's data's, housed within his IoT device. Nick's data is currently housed within his databases. My data is currently housed within my database. And if we can coalesce those data sets within BSV, yeah, the world's our oyster.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that point about better decision making. It's not the data itself that just magically creates a better world. Data creates, if you have better versions of it and access to it, better decision making for us, both as humans as well as what we can program into devices. So, Paul, let me ask you about Smart Systems. So Brett said he's working with your company to get some of the data that they have through their devices onto the blockchain. When might we be able to first expect to see data transactions from Smart Systems on chain?
Look, we're happy to get moving as soon as we can. As you know, Metastreme is developed to a point now that we can bring on applications relatively quickly and easily. The API is at a level where, fairly simple integration can start bringing data through to us. Then obviously there'd be a little bit of work on how we want to present that data, how we store the data, etc. But once we sort out that, if Brett's keen, we could get it going, I'd imagine within the next month or two.
Okay. Yeah, Brett, let's go back to you. What is it that really opened your eyes to the advantage of moving your data from cloud storage to blockchain? It's a conversation I and many other people in our ecosystem have, right? Right now, cloud storage servers are what data sets are kept in. Where do you see the advantages, and why are you interested in moving your data to the blockchain?
Yeah, well, I guess, Jimmy, there's a number of reasons. Firstly, the advantages we get from having a distributed data set are well talked about, I'm sure, through this whole conference. Whether it be the security of the data, whether it be the access that we can provide to other parties. We are trying to improve people's lives through drinking water, but if we can improve their lives through providing data that then can be analysed to solve other problems, then there's many benefits for everyone, and that's what we're all about.
Let's go back to Nick. So Nick, you told us that you didn't know anything about blockchain technology until Paul knocked on your door and called you. What did you do to investigate learning about blockchain, and what was your first reaction?
Oh, well, YouTube, of course.
Oh, YouTube, yeah.
Lots of YouTube. And I'm used to sort of swimming out of my lane. So, of course, when you first bump up against a new technology, there's a lot that you don't understand. You go to sleep, you wake up the next day, you learn a little bit more, and over time, what was foreign starts to become familiar. So, yeah, it's a challenge for anyone new to the technology. They persevere, and now I think I've got an understanding of the potential, if not, the drilling down into exactly how it works. I know what it can do, and it can do a lot.
Yeah, so Nick, you mentioned a couple of good use cases that your company can drive using blockchain-based data now. For the food and agricultural industry, can you think of other potential uses of blockchain technology your company might explore?
Yeah, look, there's two things. One, we're really concerned about animal welfare and measuring things like heart rate and that sort of thing to monitor animals and their stress levels during transport. And as a consumer, being able to choose companies that are able to manage their animals in a less stressful way, I think that's going to be enormous. The other thing that has just come across my desk this week is the potential. It's really the reverse way. So if you want to get data shared, you've got to convince people to share their data. And farmers particularly are very sensitive and resistant to sharing the data. Who's going to use it? And so now it's looking
the other way through the lens. By putting their data on the blockchain, they're also able to see who has used that data and when. And that, I think, breaks down a little bit of the resistance, and that's essential to getting this shared data, is make people feel comfortable about sharing it. It's the transparency.
Okay, let's just go back to Paul and Daniel to wrap this up. What are some next steps or developments that we might be able to expect from each of your companies? We'll start with Daniel.
I do think I'd like to start getting other people to break the Fields data collector app to put spatial data on blockchain. So I wouldn't mind releasing that.
Great. And I'm glad you caught the significance of SDV. Let's get that, really going viral across Bitcoin world.
SDV all the way, Jimmy.
Yeah. It's going to be a new song, I think. Paul, why don't you wrap up our session? You've obviously been looking into this space for quite some time and have become a big believer in BSV. Now that you've dug into it, what are new things you've learned that will shape the future of your company?
Oh, look, I mean, it clearly, from our perspective, it comes around data, the sharing of data, the, building of data sets that you use to evaluate one against the other to really come up with solutions, concrete ideas and better, data-based decisions. And really, that's probably our longer-term goal. And from our prospect, we just want to keep moving forward with the partners that we've assembled tonight and other partners that are developing in other areas that aren't so much around the sustainability industries and so forth. So, yeah, we're just keen to keep moving, keep talking to people, try and, you know, get things as much happening as soon as we can.
Sure. One actually last quick question to you, again, Paul. So why BSV?
Well, it just makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, you know, from our perspective, we've looked at these ideas for quite a long time. You know, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, never really lived up to the hype or the promises. Sometimes people will tell you, okay, well, the technology seemed okay at a certain point. But for this type of work, I mean, transaction fees going to 1 cent, you know, 10 cents, 20 cents, this is all just too much, you know. Now we're talking about dollars, but as I say, you know, at 1 cent, the transactions just make this type of stuff unviable. So, you know, it's about the scale, the fee, which creates the low fees, and everything then we can actually see that we can start to do.
Yeah, micropayments, micro fees means big power for sustainability and natural resources. Let's give a round of applause to our great session of people from Down Under. Thank you all, Paul, Daniel, Nick, and Brett.
Imagine in 1997 paying for something with your watch. Remember the last time you used cash? The world has been digitized. Almost.
Cash was once seen as the last bastion for reform, but now is on the decline. Digital transactions have outcompeted hard currency since 2017 in the UK, but breakthrough bold technologies like blockchain have revolutionized more than just money.
Disruptive technologies call for disruptive lawyers, ones that don't just accept the trend, but find new ways of interpreting the law. We are currently the only global law firm with a real track record in the area of Bitcoin and blockchain. We are results-driven and care only about securing the best possible result for our clients.
We trace the supposedly untraceable. We pioneer the future of law. We deliver new solutions. We are law changers.